Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me introduce myself before doing this presentation. My name is Marsandi Rahman. I'm from History of English Literature A class. So in this video, I will present to you early modern period. What we have here in this slide is a brief history of English modern period. So, in a tradition of literature notable for its exciting and brilliant achievement, the Elizabethan and early Stuart periods have been said to represent the most brilliant century of all. So this year has produced a gallery of authors of genius, some of whom have never been surpassed, and conferred on scores of lesser talents that the enviable ability to write with fluency, imagination, and verve. From one point of view, this sudden renaissance looks radiant, confident, heroic, and belated, but all the more dazzling for its belatedness. Yet, from another point of view, this was a time of unusually traumatic strain, in which English society underwent massive disruptions that transformed it on every front and decisively affected the life of every individual. In this in this part, we have figures. Firstly, we have William Caxton. He lives on 1415 to 1492. He mostly known for his works as a printer. Caxton's contribution to early modern English extended to his work as a translator and linguist as well. So Caxton speaks several languages, including French and Latin. The next one we have William Shakespeare. He lives in 1564 to 1616. He better known today for his plays and to a lesser extent his sonnets. Shakespeare's popularity did not increase until long after his death in 1919. The next one we have Ben Jonson. He lives in 1572 into 1637. He is considered as the greatest of Shakespeare's contemporaries. Jonson was lauded during his lifetime, and for a short time after becoming the greatest of the two playwrights and considered as England's first literary celebrity. Jonson is considered as a master of satire, a genre that Shakespeare was never good at, and even found himself in prison for one of his more incendiary plays, namely The Isle of Dogs. This won't be his last time in jail, as Johnson was also arrested and jailed for another play called Eastward Ho! Fortunately for Johnson, his talent as a screenwriter brought him a bit of fame, as he was one of the most sought-after writers of his entire life. The next one we have Henry VIII. He lived in 1491 to 1547. Henry Tudor VIII is named by his father's name. He born in 1491. So Henry is a son, the second son of the father and his mother, Elizabeth of York. And because of that, he doesn't go up for the crown until his brother Arthur, Prince of Wales, died in 17. Henry takes his own wife, Catherine, not long after he being a king. The next one, Queen Elizabeth I. Elizabeth Tudor was born in 1533 to King Henry VIII. and his second wife, Anne Boleyn, being the daughter of Henry VIII, who was best known for having multiple wives at a time when the first one was unacceptable. Elizabeth went through a lot of turmoil in her childhood until her father died when she was 15 years old. There were several attempts to prevent her from becoming a queen, but eventually Elizabeth Tudor, or Queen Elizabeth I as she was most known, she became the Queen of England when she was 25 years old in 1558, following the death of her half-sister half-sister Mary. The next one, or the last one, we have King James I. He lived in 1566 to 1625. So James I was born in 1566 to Mary, Queen of Scots, a cousin of Queen Elizabeth I. James became the King of Scotland when his mother abdicated his crown in 1567. He was named a praiser to the English throne by his cousin, Queen Elizabeth I, daughter of Henry VIII. James was succeeded Elizabeth after her death in 1603. In this period, we have also ideology. The first one, according to Edward Albert, during this period there was a renewal of great attention to science, changes in religious idealism, the emergence of a new literary world, and a large change is in people's heart and mindsets. The next one, Tudor. The major theme of Tudor history is Reformation, namely the transformation of England to Catholic to Protestant. The next one, Henry VIII succeeded the Pope as head of the Church of England, but retained Catholic doctrine. The last one, Henry VII, ruled as a monarchy or hereditary, which was threatened by exercising increasingly centralized control over the state. However, he and his successor were plagued by the questionable legitimacy of their dynasty. In this period, we have also literature works. The first one is Faerie Queene. It's made it's made in 1552 into 1565 by Edmund Spenser. This is the Spenser's masterpiece. It is an epic of Protestant naturalism in which the villain is pagan or papal, the hero is King Arthur, and the central value is the sanctity of marriage. Moving on to the next literary works, we have Oedipus, made in 1554 to 1606 by John Lyly. This is the fictional direction to take was set by John Lyly. The Anatomy of Wit, 1578, which with the sequel of Oedipus and His England, made in 1518, set the fashion for the extreme rhetorical behavior that came to be known as Oedipism. The next one we have Arcadia, for the literary works in 1554 to 1586 by Philip Sidney. Arcadia is the last version, published in 1593, is a representative example of the successful cross-fertilization of genre. During this period, the aristocratic pastoral contamination with popular story, lyrics with ballads, comedy with romance, tragedy with satire, and poetry with prose. The next one, or the last one, we have Paradise Lost and Paradise Regained, made in 1608 to 1974 by John Milton. This is the Milton's great achievement is Paradise Lost and Paradise Regained. It were only published after the Restoration, but their roots lie deep in the radical experience of 1640s and 50s, and in subsequent transformation in politics and society, with its anti-hero, Satan, and its flawed rebellion against an almighty divine monarchy. Paradise Lost revisits the politics of the last regeneration. The last part, I guess, is the character of the literary works in this period. The first character we have instability. So during this time of period 1500 to 1800, the English language was in constant state of flux. The classical renaissance took place during this time, and English speakers had more contact with non-English speakers, so they have adopted foreign words and phrases earlier. The next characteristic is vocal shift. So in this period of time, vocal shift occurs, resulting in shorter vowel sounds. For example, we have the word might, meet, and mate began to sound less like vowels in the words thief, fed, and pawn, so that these words has become pronounced phonetically. Diphthongs or two more vowels combined into one sound also replaced many long vowels. For example, the vowel I, which was previously used to spell the sound E, is now replaced and is spelled A. In addition, the vowel sounds that were previously different from each other began to sound identical. For example, May and Main. Even though they were spelled differently, it began to make the same vowel sound. The next one we have silent consonant. During the great vowel shift, some consonant or non-vowels become silent. The next one we also have font variation. The way the letters are used at this period is also different from the standard English used today. For example, the letters U and V are interchangeable, with V only appearing as the first letter of a word and U elsewhere, where the letter I had been used for the letter G. Before this period, the capital letter G began to be used as consonant sound. The next one we have grammar. In terms of grammar much has remained as the same from the earlier Middle English period. At the end of this period, U become more common than previously used, though for one person and ye for many in Old English. The next one we have contraction. The contraction of will into I will, but shortened in terms of writing, uh, like in she will and we will. The next one we have elision. The process of elision creates the silencing of sounds or syllables when speaking. This is also a characteristic of early modern English. For example, them becomes spelled as in certain texts. The last one we have standardization. Despite the instability of the early modern English period, Johannes Gutenberg's invention of the printing press in 1440 also had a major impact on the early modern English period. This process brought greater stability to the English language and creates a standardization of the English used by the printing press in London. Differences between the spelling and pronunciation of words remained common during this period until around 1630, when written and spoken English began to reflect one another more closely. That's all presentation from me of the early modern period English. Thank you so much for paying attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.